Yeah. Hello, everyone. Good morning, and a very welcome and well zooming in whichever the cardinal and intermediate direction you are coming through the beams of the sun, like all the arhats used to do. I'm amazed that by the modern technology you could all come through the beams of the sun in my little room here. So thank you very much. This is Tibetan Buddhist Society of Canberra's regular Sunday morning Dharma talk. These days I have been doing the series on the life of the Buddha, and this is the 8th session. It's going to be the last. So take your time to secure your space and your mind and your concentration, your intention, and so that our ability to listen to the stories connected with the life of the Buddha, and thereafter how much of its importance is recognizable by us in our lives, by feeling the Dharma in our life and relishing the true medicine the Dharma is, and particularly when we are consciously zooming onto Dharma. Just like you're zooming here today, you have to zoom on the Dharma regularly. People have the wrong zoom contact, or they're zooming all kinds of drama and negativities and stories. Then they have the wrong kind of platform. So therefore, thank you for all your discipline and commitment and fellowship to be here today, like everyone is. Take a couple moments before we do the refuge prayer. Refuge prayer is a very much not just a kind of a starter as such. It is the very teachings that when we have our switch on our mind to the triple gem, we are much safer. We are truly safe. We know where to take refuge and shelter. We do not let ourselves become exposed to greed, hatred, and ignorance. We are always know how to be kind and compassionate, tolerant, and understanding. So that's really refuge. You can't just say a few minutes of prayer and thinking that's the refuge and then get on with something else. Refuge is that is being living the Dharma mindfully, and then selecting our thoughts and knowing what safe thoughts are to keep and benefit ourselves, and what actions that is to be performed under the good selected safe thoughts will be of benefit to oneself and others in future. So when we are able to do that, we are always in refuge. Whether you are reciting some prayers in deep kind of a retreat or not, sometimes mind still wanders off. Even you are physically in retreat chanting the prayers, your mind could be losing its plot. So refuge shouldn't be seen just as a formality, but it is the foundation and quintessence of all the teachings. So in any ways, join your hands at the heart and think of the qualities of the Buddha, the Dharma, the Sangha, and our ability to extract their truthfulness and then apply them as a medicine for the mind's vulnerability to otherwise kind of go into the wrong direction. So we have a particular restraint, self-restraint to do that. So to renew that practice of self-restraint, we are renewing our commitment before these teachings. So join your hands at heart, and if you know the prayers exact word by word, that's fine. If not, you know the meaning. It's the Buddha, the Dharma, the Sangha. We take refuge, not just today or not just the beginning of prayer or something, but until essence of enlightenment reach. And we shall do this for the benefit of not just me and now, but for future and others and sentient beings and their liberation. So with this kind of altruistic motivation, we renew the refuge and bodhicitta, altruism, which consists of loving kindness, compassion, and joy and equanimity. So let's do that. In the Buddha Dhamma Sangha aitere vite laitame vavache ajendala aishare vadavatu endabu dadama sangha aitere vite laitame vavache ajendala aishare vadavatu endabu dadama sangha aitere vite laitame vavache ajendala aishare vadavatu May all beings have happiness and a cause of happiness. May they be free from suffering and a cause of suffering. May they know a path for happiness that knows no suffering. May they dwell in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion to those near and far. May all beings have happiness and cause of happiness. May they be free from suffering and a cause of suffering. May they know a path for happiness that knows no suffering. May they dwell in equanimity, free from attachment, aversion, and those near and far. May all beings have happiness and the cause of happiness. May they be free from suffering and the cause of suffering. May they never part from the happiness that knows no suffering. May they dwell equanimity, free from attachment and aversion to those near and far, according to the intelligence and predisposition of it, where the Yajanda Dharma agrelo ekam vegos. So we have finished talking last week about after the passing away of the Buddha, the first gathering of the senior disciples happened under the sponsorship of King Ajatasattu. So that's actually happened roughly about 3 months after the Buddha's passing away. In the vicinity of Rajgriha, which is still under the reign of King Ajatasattu, he became the first sponsor to conduct a Buddhist council, first Buddhist council. It is said that was roughly 483 before Christ. That's exactly the year that Buddha passed away, and it was held in Satapani caves. So it is actually in the mountains of Rajgriha. These days, people don't seem to go to that particular place because it's lost in history. But actually, it's a very important place. That's where Ananda and Mahakashapa and Venerable the great Barber, they all did the actual collection of the teachings, and then they decided to conduct the teachings, collect the teachings together in fear of losing the teachings, because when the great Buddha passed away, there was a great fear of the teaching being lost. And so, because it seems those days everything was by memory, and I don't know whether there was a writing system then or not. It seems there wasn't, because nothing seems to be committed to writing. But because most of the celebrated disciples, namely arhats, had the art of non-forgetfulness, they could remember every word for word what they heard from the Buddha. And so that's why the purpose of holding the council was to the telling of all the teachings they heard, starting with Ananda and then Upali and Mahakashapa. They three of these great arhats who have achieved great sainthood, so they are no longer with ordinary gross defilements and so on. And they held the council. And Mahakashapa became the became the presider, because he himself has been appointed as a successor by the Buddha, and main objective being to compile all the teachings. So that's considered historically first Buddhist council. They usually say there were 3 or 4 councils were held in order that these teachings were ensured so they do not get lost. Often the teachings, the so-called teachings, was largely how strict or what exactly were the main what you call precepts that was often disputed among the disciples, whether they were too strict or whether they need modification. So anyway, then when one of the monks said that he was complaining that the Buddha was too strict while he was alive, telling always, every time there was a little problem, Buddha increased the strictness of the rules and number of the rules. And so when the Buddha passed away, one of the monks said, "What a relief! Now no more no more rules will be imposed on us. Now at least we can live the life a little bit with more relax." And Mahakashapa said, "Oh gosh, what a worry. These people are so irrespectful, irreverent to the Buddha, as if he was more interested in imposing stricter rules." And so Mahakashapa said, this is not the right attitude. And some people definitely were finding because there was no initially the monastic rules, that the four defeats or that 273 vows, they increase every time there was a kind of complaint, like the Australian government resolutions or rules. All the rules weren't like that. Like 10 years ago, the rules were the fines or the traffic rules were not so heavy and not so strict, isn't it? Nowadays, $300 just for a simple traffic fine, isn't it? Like that, when the longer the Buddha lived, the more the rules, and so the people were finding almost they were really too rigid, Anyway, so that's the main purpose was so that the council was held in order that Buddha's teaching were preserved rather than ignored or forgotten. So that was the first council, during which they standardized some degree of what constituted the 3 higher trainings, what you call Tripitaka. Tripitaka is a good Buddhist terminology to remember, because if people ask what is Buddhist, do you have a Bible? You don't say we don't have a Bible. We have Tripitaka. You say Buddhists have Tripitaka. Tripitaka means 3 means 3. Pitaka means collections. So 3 collections are 3 medicine pouches, 3 medicine pouches for 3 poisons. Human beings suffer from greed, hatred, and ignorance. And so these 3 Pitakas, Vinaya, and Sutra, and Abhidharma, were respectively the remedies for desire, hatred, and ignorance. And so therefore all these Tripitakas considered to be, each of the Tripitakas considered to having more than 21,000 discourses in the Sutra, in the Vinaya, and in the Abhidharma. So that's 63,000 discourses. Then on top of that, there were another 21,000 discourses that are miscellaneous, and therefore 63,000 plus another, 84,000, to make up 84,000 altogether became what they call the complete Pitaka. Complete Pitakas, Tripitakas. So Tripitakas enjoyed great popularity, respect. Whenever there was a great gathering, senior monks were always requested to read a Pit Sutra, read a Vinaya. Vinaya was read always bi-monthly. Vinaya, all the monastics have to gather together in order to observe the rules. Not only they should observe their rules by themselves, but they always gather once a fortnight to review the vows, to restore the minor transgressions in front of the Sangha, and nobody was meant to be absent. If any absentees in the fortnightly confession or restoration vows were considered to be some kind of a drop out from the Sangha. So the rules were fairly strict. Even though you can stay yourself in a small hut somewhere quiet, but every fortnight you have to gather in the main assembly and do your communal confession. And no one is. It doesn't mean you have to explicitly say what your transgressions were, because they are permissible confession, during which you read a general kind of template of the confession, then you think whatever that minor transgressions were, and they were naturally restored by virtue of oneself acknowledging them in the presence of the Sangha. So Sangha was divided into two, the senior group and the junior group. Firstly, junior group confessed to the senior, then the senior groups also confesses to the junior. So in this way, this kind of fortnightly revision of the Vinaya Pitaka gave rise to a lot of interpretation, what some of the rules pertain to, or were strict, or were too strict, or somewhat. It is interesting. So the Vinaya was reviewed but read Vinaya Sutra. There's a particular discourse that the head abbot have to read out every fortnight to the assembly. The assembly consists of largely monastics. There no lay people weren't part of that service. Lay people simply offer food and needs of the Sangha, but lay people weren't taking part in the fortnightly Vinaya revision. But monastics had to, and so in this way it was tried to contain the Sangha together. The Sangha became Sangha because they became a community during which they all came to learn about the Vinaya every fortnight, as well as Sutra, as well as Abhidharma. So things went like this for good less than 100 years, okay. But after 100 years of Buddha's passing away, we were talking last week about those 7 great patriarchs, starting with the Mahakashyapa, then Ananda, that's Buddha's cousin, and then Shanavasin, then Upagupta. It is the Upagupta, 4th patriarch's period, during which this second council held. Second Buddhist council was Second Buddhist council was conducted under the patronage of King Ashoka. King Ashoka was not really very good at the beginning. No kings are usually. Always looked after himself and killed millions, thousands, even his brothers, families. He was going everywhere, massacring people. And one day then he realized that one of his queen was a devout Buddhist. She had some very positive influence on him, but he got too carried away by his greed for power and fame and wealth. He didn't realize what he was doing. One day he realized basically every town and villages he went to, they were all destroyed because by his army, everything was such a pitiful place. And then he realized, what have I done all this for? Then he came to his senses, and then he realized, this is not. I don't want to live like this anymore. This is senseless. This is not living. This is waste of time. And so he earned the name, the Ashoka, the ruthless, Kala Ashoka. Kala means the black, the dark Ashoka, because he was just such a terrifying force. And then he met Upagupta. Upagupta is the 4th patriarch of the Buddha, and Upagupta, those arhats had great power to show many miracles. It seems those first few hundred, the arhats were showing miracles. Everybody got converted just by seeing one spectacle. They never had to listen to any discourses. They were largely, definitely religiously converted by seeing spectacles of amazing spiritual, supernatural powers revealed by the arhats. And Upagupta was able to show many of those, but just by seeing Upagupta, King Ashoka completely came to his senses, I want to follow him. I want to get rid of my old ways. And then Upagupta's influence converted the Kala Ashoka, the ruthless, the killer of. He became very, very ruthlessly powerful, or you can call it destructive. To all his enemies, he was destructive. To his favor, we can call powerful. Basically, he ruled India in no comparison to any of his peers or any of his presidents, any of his so therefore he had this amazing power. So around 383, that's exactly about 100 years after Buddha passed away. So the second council was held, and that was held in Vaishali. Vaishali is the city where Ananda passed away and he was buried, and where he requested Buddha to ordain women, and Vaishali is one of the very important place. So there, the second Buddhist council was held there under the patronage of King Ashoka. During this, one of the main reasons they have to have this was there was this conflict, which is really remnants of some of the ideas of the late Devadatta. Devadatta had said the monks are not meant to keep any belongings, including salt. You shouldn't keep salt even between your fingers and walk up down the road. You just eat on the spot, and that's it. You're not meant to keep. And so there were 10 prohibitions. So there were 10 additional some monks wanted to relax the vows by say allowing to carry salt between your two fingers, maybe for the next next day or something, just in case you won't get salt. And there's this monks are living very hard, So they basically would wait for the next meal. That's it. That's the next day. And some monks made a habit of keeping salt between two fingers, and they saw that as transgress. So there are 10 such prohibitions that the Vinaya, original Buddhist monastic code, prevented such things, such as, and also touching gold, they call it. Those days gold meant money, because there were no real paper money, let alone credit card, I don't know whether monks are allowed to use credit card in the modern or not. These days monks' vow should be they shouldn't own credit card. And these 10 prohibitions was really going against the Vinaya, and so they have to have the second council. This second council was held in order to see whether some of these requested relaxation of the vows are permissible or not. So it is during the second council the Buddhist monastics were divided into two groups. They say it's too impractical. Sometimes they have to live in one of the arguments Devadatta made was that monastics shouldn't live too much in a remote place. If to do that, the lay devotees can't have to travel miles to come and offer food. Where if they lived near the towns and cities, then they can receive food easily. So there were a lot of monks saying that some of the rules are too strict and rigid and cannot live properly. So naturally the two groups were divided. These two groups were called Staviras and Mahasangikas. Staviras basically are the more orthodox Theravadins. So Theravadin is derived from the Staviras. And Mahasangikas are the ones who argued that a little bit of adaptation of the rules needed to be made in order to cater for geography, time, and different place. And so this Mahasangika group became the root from which became Mahayanist, and Staviras became the group who actually followed the Theravadins. So as a result of the second council was not much better than causing the division bigger. So it didn't manage to bring the dividing groups, but broke the groups into two, and then the two became 4, and 4 became 6, and it all became 18 subgroups, monastic groups. So initially, and probably it still is to these days, it's all about what was the correct vows of the Buddha Dharma, particularly as a monastics, that are authentic to the Buddha Dharma, and that are being sort of disrespectively adapted and modified. So some people didn't think that any modification should be allowed. We still have people who think like that, even in 21st century, saying that we have to go by the letter, and so that's it. Those like the text says, like say bhikshuni a woman, fully ordained woman, who she may have been ordained 20, 30, 40 years, but she still have to bow down as to a young novice male. If he just go ordained now, she still have to bow down to him instead of her being senior, and so on. Things like that. Naturally, if it wasn't between two genders, even within the one gender, such kind of ways often brought different opinions and arguments. So was not really avoidable. In any case, the dividing, having the second council made the division strong, but nevertheless, the great influence of true Buddhism, maybe is still great, was the King Ashoka's influence came at a very crucial point. King Ashoka abandoned his violent and greedy ways, and he himself took on robes. His own son Mahinda became this monk, and his daughter also became a nun. And both of these two became very, three of them became very staunch supporters of the Theravada. And his son Mahinda and his daughter actually traveled to Sri Lanka. And Buddhism, the strength of Buddhism, father of Buddhism in Sri Lanka can be considered to be Mahinda, the King Ashoka's son. So Ashoka, what did he do? But even though he may not have been very effective to unite the dividing Buddhist council, but nevertheless he ordered, because everything was under his reign in India, he ordered all the 7 of the 8 stupas that has been built in memory of the Buddha's birth and enlightenment and so on. He ordered all the stupas to be opened, so the relics are opened, and he wanted to distribute the relics throughout his whole reign, which is whole Indian subcontinent, went as far as Afghanistan, maybe reached the influence as far as Central Asian republics, not to mention Nepal, and not to mention all the Southeast Asia. He distributed the relics and ordered to build 84,000 stupas within a particular short period of time. And then he renovated all the 8 Buddhist sites and built pillars in each of those places, very, very strong, amazing stone pillars, and proclaiming that what this place represent, so that the history will not be erased by changes, but he makes sure there will be these huge pillars stood next to the great stupas. So that was very, very important, I would say, activity of King Ashoka. Not only did he help to secure the Sangha, but he also went historically to preserve all the places of the Buddha's influence, that he actually waived tax to the resident of those 8 places. The pillar in Lumbini actually says very clearly in Ashokan script. Now, during Ashokan script, during Ashoka, which is 100 years after Buddha's period, there is proof that there was a writing system. Otherwise, he couldn't put the inscription on the insert. So, in any case, Ashoka made such a royal decree to his subjects to preserve and look after those places. And so I think that even today, not only today, but as early as, say, in 7th century and even 4th century, some very prominent Chinese Buddhist monastics who traveled as pilgrims to India, Yixing in 4th century and Xuanzang in 7th century, they both traveled to those holy places. They wrote a very extensive travelogue, which has become some of the most useful travelogues that modern archaeologists found useful to trace this very exact location of the 8 holy spots in the Buddha's history. So when they did so, they discovered these very King Ashoka's pillars, and some of them are still standing. Some of them are standing, others are broken, but still the half of it is still in the ground. Others have been broken into pieces but preserved in some of the Indian museums and so on. So all of these pillars and their location has helped modern archaeologists in 18th century, by the way. There was between, I would say, the 11th century to 18th century, quite a lot of the Buddhist sites were forgotten, and the people didn't know where they were. I think they never forgot where Bodh Gaya was. And I think where Varanasi was forgotten for a long time, and likewise most of the other places. Only place that didn't quite escape from the geographical kind of site was Bodh Gaya, because many Burmese and Southeast Asian seems to have traveled every year to Bodh Gaya, even in those times when the Buddhism was completely wiped out in India. So anyway, by the way, those Ashoka pillars and the 84,000 stupas that he ordered to be built in order to confess and redeem all the negative karma he created by being the ruthless king. In order to confess that, he did that, and he rebuilt many of the temples. Some people even say the current Bodh Gaya's some of the structures were originally all sponsored by King Ashoka. King Ashoka helped to rebuild the Mahabodhi stupa, even though the actual stupa was built before that. So there's a lot of stories like that. Then there was a third Buddhist council. Third Buddhist council happened around the 250 BC, and so they became much more. So then, by that time, the division between the Mahayana and Theravada was very, very obvious. Buddhism that went down South India, strong South India, was Theravadan. Buddhism that stayed very strong in Pataliputra. Pataliputra is modern Patna in Bihar, not far from Bodh Gaya, as well as in Kashmir. Buddhism spread in that area, become very strong Mahayanis, and not to mention to many other Central Asian republics. Even in China was the first. Buddhism came to China in the 1st century AD. That's very early, That's very early. So Buddhism made a huge impact in those, and that otherwise you wouldn't attract pilgrims from so far from China. So anyway, around the fourth council, when the fourth council was held under the king of Kaniksha, so this seems to be more like a disputed whether who was doing what, because each group was doing their own thing now. Because Kaniksha was a king, more of a king of a northern Buddhism. During that time, it seems the Pali and Sanskrit, two languages, became very segregated, and all the sutras and Vinayas and Abhidharma in the Theravada tradition were committed into Pali language, and all the sutra, Vinaya, Abhidharma in the Mahayana was all in Prakrit and Sanskrit languages. So you can see how the Mahayana Buddhism realist and the Theravada Buddhism stem from the division of the different interpretation of the Vinaya, and that's why eating after midday, and like the Theravadins even today they wouldn't eat after midday, where the Mahayanas monastics from Japan to China or Tibet, however their streak might be as a monk, but they still eat like cows in the evenings without any hesitation. So it was one of the 10 prohibitions was not to eat after midday. And so you can see the Theravada is still observing the rules by only, they have to finish eating after midday, by the midday. And they shouldn't have a second serve. They should eat on one sit, and must finish before midday. And some people think that the midday is by Bangkok time. So they say if you're eating after midday Bangkok time, you're transgressing the vows, They didn't realize it was midday in India. Midday India when they made the rules. Uh, so they have made some adaptation, but they become very strict with their own country's midday. Mm. In any case, that's one of the very obvious example is that like when you offer money to the Theravada monk, the bhikshu, senior monk, he's meant to not touch the money, but he's an attendant. Novice can touch the money. His novice can give the money for his teacher who can't have the money, but can have the money through the novice. It's interesting. So rules are sometimes just nitpickingly unnecessary cause of division. But the distinctive cause of the orthodoxy is not eating after midday. Theravadins are very strict about that, and they still observe that. And from the health point of view, nowadays they say, yeah, people shouldn't eat very much after midday, particularly in the evening, for your health purposes. They should eat very decent meal in the morning, early part of the day, and have probably fast in the evening is considered to be, his health point of view, a very healthy point of view. So Buddha was, right from the very beginning, knew how many people in 21st century will suffer from overeating. So monastics looking fat is not a good sign. Whether he doesn't eat after midday or not. So anyway, so what I'm going to talk today, the second part of the morning, is after Buddha passed away, and then what we call all his stupas were built, but then King Ashoka ordered all the stupas to be open and rebuilt so that relics can be distributed, more stupas can be built. Anyway, so what happened was all the devotees now became committed to go on pilgrimages. And to go on pilgrimages, Buddha himself have said that those people who have faith to me must be told of Lumbini, where I was born, must be told of Varanasi, where I turned the wheel of Dharma, must be told about Bodh Gaya, where I attained enlightenment, must be told about Kushinagar, where I pass away. Should anyone visit to those places and paid homage and did the practices, he said it will be equal merit in seeing him in person and receiving teachings. So because of this order, Buddhists, because of that, they made very sure, they made 8 stupas. So can we do the screen share of those 8 stupas? So there are actually 8 different stupas, but of course, throughout the Buddhist history, the culture, you can see there are many stupas. You can see the Mahabodhi stupa in Bodh Gaya. You can see the Borobudur temple in Indonesia. You can see this amazing temple in Angkor Wat in Cambodia. And then if you go to Tibet, there's a Potala Palace and Samye Monastery. If you go to China, you go to the Wu Taishan. And there are many Buddhist places you can see various stupas. The origin of these stupas are these 8 stupas. These 8 stupas are the 8 countries where the Buddha's stupas were built. And after dividing the Buddha's relic, and each of those relics were honored, and the ground were dug up at a very prominent location, preferably, let's say, the place where the Buddha was born is called Lotus-Hipped Stupa. So you can see the Lotus-Hipped Stupa is the first stupa there. First stupa on the top left is, most of stupas have same shape. They got a good square base at the bottom, and 4 steps, and then another one, and then many steps, and then the many steps above that is the distinctive feature of what makes the stupa different. So you can see the lotus hip stupa has many heaps of lotus below the vase. The main body of the vase, the semicircular shape of the stupa, below that is called vase part of the stupa, and below that is the lotus hip. Lotus hip is related to Lumbini, because when the Buddha was born in Lumbini, every step he took, the lotus flower sprang. Lotus flower sprang. So all the 7 steps, altogether 28 steps that he took on the ground when he was born, all the 28 lotus sprang. So Lumbini was the relic given to the Shakya kingdom, was built a stupa called Lotus hip stupa. So that's the first one. Second one is, of course, enlightenment stupa, because all the other activities are not so important until Buddha got enlightened. So enlightenment stupa is called Mahabodhi stupa. So it's called enlightenment. It's called enlightenment because enlightenment means bodhi. So Mahabodhi means great enlightenment stupa. So great enlightenment stupa that you see in Bodh Gaya is very tall, and the shape of that is, these particular 8 stupas we have is very, very Tibetan architectural design that are standardized. So the shape and architecture design of the most stupas have been somewhat very, very distinguishable depending to whether they are Thai or whether they're Burmese or whether they're Chinese or whether they are Tibetan or whether they're Sri Lankan or so stupa. But these are traditionally Tibetan architectural designs of the stupa. So enlightenment stupa is Mahabodhi stupa. So that was the segment of the relic given to the king who ever ruled Bodh Gaya. I don't know whether Bodh Gaya was still under Magadha or not, we don't know. But anyway, so that was because that's the place where Buddha got enlightened. So the second stupa. Third stupa is called multi-door stupa. Multi-door stupa is in Varanasi. The multi-door stupa is, you can see the distinctive feature of the stupa is many, many doors. So that meant the Buddha admitted sentient beings of different kind of mentalities and aptitude to the Dharma. All the teachings the Buddha gave a door to enter into the Dharma. So whether they are a passionate person, whether they're angry person, whether they're arrogant person, whether they're deluded person, whether they're lazy, whatever it is, Buddha gave all 84,000 discourses. Each of these 84 discourses correspond to the 84,000 emotional problems. These are what we call 84,000 remedies for 84,000 problems. So that the many door meant that the Dharma gives a kind of a relevant way to all beings to enter into the Dharma. So that's the multi-door stupa in Varanasi. So Varanasi is the place where Buddha gave the teachings, starting with the Four Noble Truths and law of interdependent origination and emptiness and so on. Buddha gave teachings everywhere. Varanasi is considered to be first historical place. Then the fourth one is called Great Miracle Stupa. Fourth stupa, Great Miracle Stupa. That stupa is associated with the Shravasti. Shravasti is the place where Buddha spent longest time, 25 rainy season retreat. That meant he spent more than 26 years there. He may have traveled here and hither, but spending 25 rainy season retreat, so Buddhists cannot not go to Shravasti. These days people go to Bodh Gaya and then go home. They think that's enough. And so Shravasti has been somewhat neglected. It's a little bit out of the main route or Indian kind of geographical thing. But if you travel, if you really want to go there, Shravasti is near Delhi. You travel from Delhi to Lucknow by flight. And then from Lucknow, it's just a little over 3 hours drive. So Shravasti is the place where Buddha spent longest time. Some of the most historical anecdotes, like the Angulimala story, like Kisa Gautami story, like all of those stories, many of the sutras, whenever you read it, it talks about the Prince Jeta's grove and the benefactor Anathapindika. And it's all happened in Shravasti. So it is in Shravasti that Buddha actually attracted, the 6 rivals that he had in India, all came to compete with him, to challenge with him spiritually, saying that they were very jealous of the Buddha, and these 6 great exponents of heretical views came to compete with the Buddha, and Buddha initially really refused to engage in any kind of competition. It's not appropriate for him to do. Secondly, they will always try to outperform the Buddha by showing many miracles. So then it ended, kings, many different, 15 Indian kings, all came from different directions, requested the Buddha to show the miracles in order to dissuade vulnerable people following the wrong way. So it is therefore the stupa that is built there is called Great Miracle Stupa, because if you really look at the stupa, there is one stupa, if you go there these days, called Angulimala Stupa. It's a really miracle. What the Buddha just said, stop. He just said that, and it changed. It changed. That's a miracle. I mean, who have said a couple of words and changed people's life? It's Buddha's lion roar. We can call it Buddha's lion roar. He would say a couple of words, or maybe show a small gesture. It will completely change the person. Some would come to see him. It completely changed the person. So being able to change the deluded mind from staying deluded, that's a really miracle. That's a really miracle, don't you think? But of course, on top of that, people begged him to show miracles. So that's why the Great Miracle Stupa is committed to Shravasti. That's the 4th one. And then, remember, while Buddha was teaching in Shravasti, this was maybe about 7 to 8 years after he was teaching Shravasti. Then he had to go and visit his mother, his mother died quite a long time ago. Remember, his mother died when he was born. That's a long time ago. Let's say 81 years ago. Now 81 plus another 7-8 years after Buddha's enlightenment, So not 81. So that's right. So we're talking about the Buddha's. So Buddha went to visit his mother in the heaven of 33 realms around the age of 40, 42. So, and then he went to visit her, and he told actually the monastics that he will be away for 3 months, and only disciples like Moggallana Putra and others were permitted to follow him, but others were asked to stay back and do the practice while during his absence. Because those days everybody flocked around the Buddha, and they just couldn't spend any day without him, because they were so most of them got enlightened, or just by seeing him, just by hearing him once, they all became changed. They became completely, zapped him. They become completely changed. That was the quality of Buddha's blessings. And when Buddha was physically absent from the world, it was too difficult for most people. And anyway, so then they requested Buddha to return. They asked Moggallana Putra to go to the heaven of 33 realms to beg the Buddha to come back, because we are missing him so much, and the world is indeed dark without his presence. So as a result of that, then Buddha promised to return back to the world, and finally he did. So the place he returned, therefore descend from the heaven of God realms, that's the stupa. You can see that stupa is distinct. You can see the front of the stupa got steps here, steps going up. So there got 3 steps, gold, silver, and turquoise or something. So Buddha actually descended from the heaven of 33 realms, to a place called Sankasya. This place is very, very neglected even today. Hardly any Buddhists go there because it is so neglected, and Indian archaeologists have successfully located the place, but largely due to the help of the Chinese pilgrims' travelogues and translated, and they succeeded to recognize that but actually, so it's not very far from Shravasti, but at the same time, it is not very convenient to go there. So there, the stupa the stupa is built with these amazing steps going. Now nowadays, you don't see that stupa of great miracles built many places. Most of the people are building stupa of the either all 8 of them, small ones, maybe 10 meters long or something tall. But in Dehradun, next time you go to India, you should go and visit Dehradun. Dehradun is now become a very important cradle of Tibetan revival of Tibetan Buddhism. There, the seat of the Nyingma monastery called Mindroling, who was the head of the Nyingma lineage. He passed away about maybe 15 years ago. He has built this giant stupa, with descent from the heaven. I think it would be more than 100 feet high, more than 20 or maybe about 15 or 20 story high. You wouldn't believe. You go in there, you want to spend your rest of life there. It's so beautiful. You can go, there are like so many stories in the stupa, and now this has become like a great tourist attraction of not just Buddhists but also many Indians. So no, they couldn't bear ignoring that place. People will come there, and they thought they would come there for half an hour. They end up staying whole day, and some people actually even. So the monastery end up building a big guest house so pilgrims can come and stay. They have built a beautiful garden around it. So not many of these stupa from the descent from the heaven is to be found. But nevertheless, Mindroling Rinpoche and some of his tulkus and his successors have done a wonderful job. And that stupa is there in Dehradun. You don't see that built in many places. When I go to pilgrimage in India, I always make a habit. If I go to Dehradun, that's one of our, we spend at least half a day there. And some days we wish we could stay there another night because it's so nice. Not only look tall, but inside is so wonderfully done. Be there statues, the whole stories, all the Buddhist teachings are viewable by watching the murals of all the different lineages. So that's even though Sankasa is not a place where people, I haven't been to Sankasa myself. I must admit. Maybe one day I should go. Sankasa. Anyway, so the sixth stupa is the stupa of reconciliation. Stupa of reconciliation is stupa that is built in Rajgir, because Rajgir is situated in the southeastern end of India. Nowadays fall under the state of what do we call Bengal. It is not Bengal, called Bihar. It stays on the border of Bengal and Bihar, and there were a lot of wars between the Banga and Bihar, and Magadha kingdom, and there Buddha, when these various warring parties was massacring each other, and Buddha made them to all stop their wars, stop their violence, and reconcile, and as well as a lot of conflicts were created within the Sangha, even during the Buddha's time, like the Devadatta created a lot of schism. And to reconcile all this is stupa of really reconciliation, where all the disputes should be dropped and you just make a pact of peace, Stupa, this is UNESCO should build stupa this in front of their building. Stupa of reconciliation, UNESCO, United Nations anyway. It's try to stop all the conflict between countries and race and religions and traditions. So that's I don't see that stupa at all in Rajgir. I have been to Rajgir many times. There is the bamboo grove there. There is a vulture's peak, but we do not see where the stupa of reconciliation ever was, because much of the valley of Rajgir is still in thick jungle. It's never been excavated. It's so large. Indian archaeologists wouldn't know where to begin. And if because in India, when they do any government funding, the good 50% goes in the pockets of those who before any work gets done. Anyway, so stupa of reconciliation is connected with Rajguru here, and then the seventh is the stupa of victory. That's in Vaishali. You know, Vaishali is where Buddha ordained women, and also where his stepmother was ordained as a bhikkhuni. So it's a very there the stupa of victory is built, and some people say that Buddha actually, if Ananda requested Buddha to live long, when he said, I'm going to go to Kushinagar and pass away, he would have lived long and not pass away. Anyway, the stupa of complete victory is associated with the Vaishali, where Buddha blessed himself not to pass away immediately, but at least live another 3 months and pass away because he fell ill quite a while. And he was already very ill when he was in Vaishali, but he made sure that his body still will continue to live for another 3 months, so that he passed away in a neutral zone in Kushinagar, so that there is no real great conflict between the various warring parties. Because all the other 7 kingdoms where Buddha spent time, they all had huge claim over why Buddha is theirs. But if he passed away in Kushinagar, which is the place of a neutral land of the king of Mallas, the Mallas had no claim over Buddha, nor were they even devotees. So if he went and passed away in Kushinagar, then that conflict would not happen. So therefore he blessed his life to live another 3 months longer, and that's why the stupa of complete victory is built. So, but when you go to Vaishali, you don't see the remain of that stupa at all. You see the huge pillar of Ashoka, and remnants of stupa. They think it's a stupa of Ananda. So that's why history is, 2,000 years is a long time, remember? So people don't know which is which, but I'm sure all those amazing remnants in Vaishali. Vaishali used to be one of the most beautiful Indian cities in ancient India, and much of it is still under forests and farmlands and never been excavated. But what has been excavated area right now is where they discovered this long pillar of Ashoka, still standing in peace. And they discovered the relics from the Buddha in Vaishali, and that relic is now kept in Patna Museum. Patna Museum. You can go there by paying 500 rupees. They will let you in. This Indian guards are very happy. If you pay $500, you can see it. So nowadays, recently the chief minister of Bihar has decided that he will actually rebuild the stupa in Vaishali and bring those relics back and enshrine in that very stupa. So that has been this present chief minister of Bihar. Bihar is a very big state, They have 30 million people. One state, 30 million people. And he made the rule, the whole state is dry state, no alcohol. That's amazing. He said that's his way of respecting the Buddha's. The first one of the teaching is not allow consumption and distribution and selling and making alcohol. So whole Bihar state, no alcohol. Quite a lot of Indian states are like that. And Bihar is the state, even though the man himself is not Buddhist, but when he read the history of his country and his land, he realized how much Buddha has done. And he said, we should at least respect the Buddha. And we received thousands of pilgrims from all over the world to Patna and to Bodh Gaya. And we as a state should at least honor the Buddha's teaching by not drinking alcohol. So he has made the whole state dry state. This is now at least last 5 years. I don't know how long will be allowed. Hopefully, there's another minister doesn't turn over, revoke this rule. So that's the story of Vaishali. Vaishali and Bodh Gaya, these are all within, quite nearby, nearby. Then the last stupa, the 8th stupa, is Mahaparinirvana stupa. So Mahaparina stupa is built in Kushinagar, Kushinagar. That's the place where Buddha passed away, That's the place where all his relics were first discovered, So Kushinagar is very blessed. And Kushinagar actually has the very original stupa where that stupa, where that Mahaparina stupa is still standing. And they even have about a couple of miles northeast, so the southeast of that, there's a place where he was cremated. Ramabar is a very huge place where he was cremated. So all of these are now being rediscovered and excavated, protected as an archaeological site, not as a religious site. Buddhist pilgrims go there and they can do prayers, but there's no real religious sites as such. There's all Indian governments have committed all these holy sites as scientifically very important locations. They have employed many guards with weapons and things like that, and adjoining to these holy sites have built museums, and whatever they have excavated last 200-300 years, all of those have been beautifully exhibited in those museums and showing what those places are. So in this way, what you're seeing is Buddhism in India, and then its a later influence to be able to attract as many as devotees and pilgrims around the world became as a result of building those stupas. And the amazing benefit of building those stupas is not only those 8 places. Wherever Buddhism spread, there the great teachers, practitioners lived and passed away. Every single great master passed away, they built a stupa. And so even the stupas like the great Borobudur stupa and the Angkor Wat stupa, as well as the various other great Buddhist sites you see in Sanchi in India. Sanchi in India, that's some another states that hasn't got a lot of Buddhist history that we know of, but nevertheless they discovered this huge stupa. And likewise, there are a lot of monuments that are built around the world. Even say if you go to Potala Palace, Tibet, Potala Palace is basically palace full of tombs of the Dalai Lamas. So it from the outside looks like a beautiful palace, but inside they're all tombs. The tombs are 3-4 story buildings are all filling one stupa, all made of solid gold and silver, studded in countless precious stones. So you just to visit any of the monastery, these are in Tibet. The stupas are all made out of gold and silver. They wouldn't put as an outside stupa. So it's enshrined in big palaces. You have places like Gyangtse Palgon Choten. This Western Tibet. There's a big stupa, and that is built like outside of the stupa, inside many things. But Potala Palace, or when you go to Samya Monastery, the first monastery in Tibet, it has, of course, all the reliquaries of the Padmasambhava and so on and so forth. But it is also like a huge, multi-story temple, monasteries. But inside them, you will find there's 3 things: symbols of Buddha, the images of Buddha; symbols of speech, the scriptures written in gold and silver, and we're talking about writing in solid gold ink, gold silver ink. We're not talking about printing many books. They are written. There only one copy that's printed, all written, calligraphed in golden ink, silver ink, interspersed. One line is golden, second line is silver, third line is turquoise, like this. And one volume would be like 40 kilos. And there were 108 volumes of the Tripitakas. and 220 commentaries, all also written in that. So all the temples consist of the statues of the Buddha's holy body, and scriptures, the Buddha's holy speech, and stupas represent holy mind of the Buddha. We call the three symbols of the body of the Buddha, the statues, speech, the scriptures, mind, the stupas. So you can find these days stupas as tiny as couple of inches. Those 8 stupas. I've got one set whole there. I bought last time I went to Chengdu. I bought them. You can buy the stupas about a couple of inches high, all 8 stupas, and they're beautifully made. Or you can have them very large ones. So all the ability for Buddhist teachings to stay alive was they always honored the 3 symbols of the Buddha's body, speech, mind. And what did? They do pay homage. They do 7 things in front of these 3 symbols: Buddha image, scriptures, and stupas. They pay homage, and they make offerings. By paying homage, they do prostrations, and then they make offerings of flowers, incense, and clothes, fruits. Some people bring gold leaves. They offer gold painted face of the Buddhas are completely changed, replenished with the fresh gold paint. And they offer clothes like the beautiful brocades. They they change the carpets of the monasteries, or devotees come in amazing, make lots of offerings. So they make homage, make offerings, and they do confessions. They come and confess their misgivings and wrongdoings of the past, and they make promise in front of the Buddha so that they will not repeat their negative habits, negative attitudes into the future, and then they rejoice the merits of the others in front of the Buddha images and holy scriptures. And when they go on pilgrimage, or whether they visit the local monastery or whatever, and then they request the Buddha to turn the Dharma continuously, and so that it doesn't stop. And they request the Buddha to not pass away but live long. And so like that, they do the 7-fold prayers. What I'm saying, they always do the 7-fold prayers. These 7-fold prayers is part of every Buddhist Mahayana Buddhist practice. When you look in your prayer books, text, you will see these 7 things. These 7 things, respectively, are not just rituals you perform in front of statues, but these are emotionally purification practices. By paying homage, you are purifying arrogance. Much of the people's suffering comes from arrogance and pride. By paying homage to the Buddha, physically bowing down, whether it's just folding in hands like this, or doing the full prostration, not just 1 or 2 or 3, but maybe hundreds of times people do. This is to purify your arrogance. As a form of devotion, meditation is an active form of Buddhist practice to change your karma. When Angulimala dropped his sword and arrows dropped, he dropped his wrong ways. He picked up Dharma instead. Like that, when we bow down, we drop our past ways, and we pick up the Buddha's non-violent way and teaching of compassion. So that's why we pay homage. We pay homage to purify arrogance. We make offerings, from flowers to money to offerings, whatever we offer, to confess our greed and desire and miserliness. Because lots of our suffering stems from these 3: greed and desire and attachment and clinging and controlling and self-importance. So when one making offerings, one is trying to let go those miserliness, stinginess, and greed and desire and all those things. So we make offerings. So when we confess, when we do the confession, 3rd limb, we are admitting our own mistakes. Because most people are so good in spotting other people's mistakes while hiding multitude of theirs. They never think of their mistakes. They think of other people's mistakes. Then that kind of minding other people's mistakes becomes cause of anger, cause of cause of righteousness and all. So confession is admission of our own kind of inconsistencies, and admitting one's own mistakes, and try to be conscious of one's own mistakes and not mind other people's mistakes if they have any, because we have much more subtle mistakes of our own we have not yet purified. So when people go and practice Buddhism, they do the confession. They do the confession at least 6 times a day. Then they have become good practitioners. They do not let it lapse more than 4 hours. And every 4 hours they revise their bodhicitta, their refuge, and if there are any transgressions, they confess. Those who confess regularly, they're very kind to others who make mistakes. They don't judge them. They don't throw stone at them. They don't think they are the one who has made your life wrong. They don't see the wrongdoing of others as cause of problem. They see the wrongdoing of others cause of one's own compassion, because they themselves practice confession. Then they can able to do that. And the fourth is rejoicing. When you rejoice other people's good deeds, you overcome your jealousy, you overcome your self-importance and self-loathing, low self-esteem. All these problems are purified when you rejoice the generosity, the kindness, the friendship, the diligence of others. When you feel happy for them, then it becomes your cause of happiness. Amazing. The Dharma teaches how to rejoice. And when you remember the Buddha Dharma, Buddha stupas or temples, you always join your hands and remember these 7 things. They are paying homage, making offerings, doing confession, rejoicing in the merits of others. Then the 5th one is requesting to teach the Dharma. Requesting to teach the Dharma. Dharma is so rare, and not many people are willing to teach, able to teach, have commitment to teach. Because teaching Dharma is a very big responsibility. And to teach Dharma, you have to have faith in the Dharma yourself. To teach Dharma, you have to have confidence in Dharma. Those who are, sort of yes and no type of thing, sometimes yes, sometimes no, they don't have confidence in Dharma and do their own practice, let alone teaching others. To teach Dharma, you not only have the theory, knowledge and practice, confidence in itself, yourself, but also confidence to teach others and commitment to teach others. But even if someone is so well trained, competent and confident, but if he or she is not requested, they're not allowed to teach in Buddhism. This is Buddhist etiquette, very important. They can't say, look, by the way, I'm teaching this, you should come. Some Buddhist teacher might say that, but they're not meant to do that. People meant to request themselves to request the teachings, and then ask others to come to the teachings, they themselves attending. So the teachings should be cherished and valued. It shouldn't be commodified. It shouldn't be used as a commodity. It should be given as the best gift that we can offer to each other. It should not be promoted for the sake of monetary gains by the person teaching. If he or she's their intention is to gain monetary gain, personal respect, this is that's why a lot of people might do that. Quite a few people who they think that now they can teach Dharma and use as a commodity. If they do that, then the value of Dharma decrease. The benefit of their teaching will not be so effective. So that's why when we request to someone to teach, the people who may be generally qualified also have to check their intention, whether they want to teach or not. What's their intention? Because they want to have a lot of followers, because they want to be very famous. Is that the intention? I don't know. If that's the intention, the teaching will not help others very well. So the teacher has amazing responsibilities. So that's why requesting to teach, those who to request to teach is very, very few. Why? Because of that. Second is, those who do request to teach are those who are confident to teach are even fewer. So the fact that there is this correspondence between those who are devoted, those who can teach, and those which are teaching are given properly for the said purposes without any hidden agenda, then this teaching will benefit people. This teaching will not be used for wrong purposes. And this teaching will greatly heal the sentient beings and will function as a Dharma. So that's why requesting to teach is a remedy to spiritual neglect. A lot of people are not looking at their Dharma practices or commitment. They don't seem to have any commitment to contribute to the Dharma of a study, of a progress, its promotion, its practice. They're just sitting on the fence. It's someone else's job for the Dharma to flourish. So everybody must make attempt for the Dharma to be taught, some to teach, others to request, others to propagate, others to promote. The Buddhist organization like ours is to do so that the teachings are taught and promoted. Even in this pandemic situation, we are not restricted from teaching to the populace, such as through online. So making these kind of facilities is requesting to teach, and teachings are made possible. And so people like me can only thank audience as well as people who make the actual setup possible for the teachings to exist. And when people do hear the teachings, it changes them. It teaches them how not to think this way about self, about my past, about one's opinions. One knows those opinions no good, I should stop that. Listening to Dharma taught us to drop those wrong views. We suffer more wrong views of ourselves rather than wrongdoings of other people. It's the wrong views of ourselves, past wrong views of ourselves, people are still committed to hold. They don't realize their righteous views, their arrogant views are hurting them more than the wrongdoing of others. That is those who have heard the Dharma. Those who have heard the Dharma, it hurts their ego. Dharma is like a treatment. The treatment is not enjoyable. The treatment hurts, but once you forbear the treatment, it cures you. So Dharma must recover our sanity and goodness. So that's why we need to request the teachings. That means we need to make a little contribution for the teaching to be made available. Not just monetary, not making monetary contribution. I'm not referring to whether you want to make your friend to meet the Dharma. Maybe you can say, come on, you come and listen to this teaching. I'm listening to this every week. It's really helping me. If you do that, that's also actually, someone has requested Dharma, but you are not bringing, if you're bringing someone to listen to, then you're not neglecting your spiritual responsibility, as well as someone to find, someone, maybe you give them a Dharma book as a gift. And somebody, like the late Kantipalo, his life, he was a British soldier. His life was changed when he got a gift of a book. When he read the book on Buddhism by Christmas Humphreys, it changed his life. Like that. Giving a Dharma book to a friend might be a very good way to promote Buddhism, Dharma, and not suffer from spiritual neglect. And then the sixth one is requesting not to pass away into nirvana. So that means really asking to each other to live long, asking teachers to live long. If you have someone you love, ask them to live long. It's a really nice thing to say. Instead of saying, I love you, what does it mean? What does it mean? But if you say live long, it also means I love you. I love you to live long. I love you, therefore please live long. So if you say live long, very good. If you say please live long, they will completely cheer up. So if you ask the teachers to live long, and you probably honor them and cherish them, and then they will continue to teach because their moral is boosted. People need merit, karma, and lifespan too. If they don't have merit asking people to live long, they probably can't live long. He doesn't get anybody to ask him to live long. So how can he live long? He feel a little bit, maybe I have nothing much contribute to the world, nobody want cherish me, appreciate me, maybe I have got not much use to live. So if he feel like dying because he hasn't got value, his value isn't valued. If we value our teachers, we should ask them to live long. And then they say, why? Oh, your presence helps us to have Dharma, please, you train others and so on. So it's a very important. And one of the 8 mistakes that Ananda is said to have committed was he didn't request the Buddha to live long. And that delayed his attainment of enlightenment. So it wasn't meritorious for Ananda, it was demeritorious, failing to request the Buddha to live long. And I believe the same way. Quite a lot of Tibetan, very prominent Tibetan Buddhist teachers in the last century, 20th century, died prematurely young, before even they reached 50. Like Chogyam Trungpa, His Holiness Karmapa, quite a lot of them died so young. Maybe the disciples didn't do the job. They didn't request to live long. Maybe they worshipped them as an eternal God. They didn't realize these teachers also need merit, not only having thousands of students, but students who ask them to live long. That meant they actually appreciate the teachings so much so they actually ask them to live long. Now likewise, if you get someone to say you to live, please live long, you wouldn't believe how much it boosts your morale and confidence. If you're working as a social worker or a nursing or doctor or whatever, if some of your colleagues or your clients says, please live long, thank you, it will definitely make them wanting to contribute more. So that's a very important thing to do. And 7th one, last but not least, is dedicating the small amount of merit one has accrued from doing the above for the benefit of all sentient beings, so that we are not clinging to. So in this way, we want to conclude these 8 talks on life of the Buddha, how life of the Buddha and his teaching, his ministry, and the tradition of honoring Buddha's symbol, the Buddha's body, statues, speech, the scriptures, the meanings, and the stupas. Why Buddhist cultures over the last 26 centuries have survived and continued as much as today is because devotees believed and have faith in the Buddha and the Dharma and Sangha and honor the Buddha's statues and the scriptures and the stupas. Now there's not a single Buddhist country or Buddhist tradition who doesn't honor Buddha's statue or Buddhist scriptures or stupas. They may have some minor interpretation of their kind of teachings, and particularly the monastic codes, or whether the robes should be, whether monks should eat after midday, or whether they should, their shoulders should be bare or not. You know, Theravadins think they should reveal their shoulders, even as the nuns. Even the nuns, they have to have a barren shoulder. They shouldn't cover their shoulders. It looks a bit odd to me. You know, supposed to be modest, but you're revealing your almost top half. You're nearly topless. You know, so no matter how much minor variations of such Buddhist practices, they all take refuge in the Triple Gem. They all honor Buddha images, and some Western interpreters. I have read saying, oh, Mahayanists treat Buddha as God, Theravadins treat him as human being. That's amazing. That's not a correct interpretation. Theravadins don't interpret the Buddha as a human. That was before he was enlightened. Maybe he was a human, but when he's enlightened, he is enlightened one. To say the Mahayanists treat the Buddha as a God is a misinterpretation. You know, we don't treat the Buddha as a god. We treat the Buddha as enlightened one. Enlightened one is far surpasses God and goddesses. So there are. If you read some of the kind of simplistic kind of overview by some modern academic, they write things like this on Google, and they think that's the actual Buddhist belief. It's not. Buddhists don't believe that. If you look at the Theravadins, where they bow down to the Buddha images, they wouldn't even show their feet toward the Buddha. Why? Not because they regard the Buddha as a human, because they regard the Buddha as an enlightened one. And same goes with the Mahayanists. Mahayanists and Vajrayanists, they also take the shoes off and bow down to the Buddha, not because Buddha is God, but because Buddha is enlightened one. Because of the enlightenment of the Buddha, then we are therefore honoring every single activities and teachings of the Buddha. So in this way we will conclude here these 8 series of the talk, which is today the 8th one, on the life of Buddha and associated. And anyway, so we're going to conclude here, unless you have questions. There's a chat box, is there? If there's any question, I'll have a look. Thank you. So I think there's no real questions there. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining. And we'll start some next week with a slightly different topic. I think it will be. Stay tuned on this very channel. I'll see you again. Thank you very much. I will do the dedication of merits. I'll do the dedication in Tibetan. Zona inde damje zebanye domne nye bedana damjene yega naje balon rubaye sebe zolen rawan rawara jo tejo damje renje jendele dage zona ndaye gando ba denen rogen tejo dambeje Rinjen jima mebe ne ju jen jamba ba je daren jamba da kundu zambu de yan de jendu de da gün je zo da lo je gewan de da dam je rao do ngo chan ju sem jo ren bo je ma je ban man je ju je ba nyam ba me ba Konen gondo bewa jo donye zemjo rimboje maje banam je je ba nyamba me bai Konen gondo bewa jo kanre rawa korwe jingamde penda ndewa malen jungwe ne jere zewa denzen jazo Shabe zede bade denjurje lama gungam zan la zowande Shodu guzeren la zowande jelen darjen je la zowande Lama dan jawa mebre jinje la dozo pande la me nambara tarbala Kiji zanya lo da mi je jenze legbra donwe me geje La me jen la zem la nju bara Thank you, everyone.